President, please be seated. The court is back in session, and the chamber will give the floor to co-prosecutors to put questions to this witness. You have the floor now.
Thank you, Mr. President. Madam Civil Party, after the Khmer Rouge came to your village, were you ever aware of them taking any steps to identify who in the village was of Vietnamese ethnicity?
Answer: no. No steps were taken beside my description on what happened.
Were you ever aware of Khmer Rouge asking questions of the villagers to find out who was Vietnamese?
Answer: no one came to ask us about that.
Madam Civil Party, I'd like to read you a portion of the statement that you gave to the DC CAM organization to see if it refreshes your memory. And this is at E3/7562. The English ERN is 0117065 to 51. Khmer ERN 00034056. And this is an interview with you, Madam Civil Party. The questioner is asking you about your husband and says, question, how did they know that he was Yuan? Were they told about that? Answer, they just knew it. They traced him and knew. Did they investigate to find out how many Vietnamese families there were in the village? Your answer, that is correct. That is what they did. Question, did they ever come to collect statistics in villages and communes? Did they ever come to make any lists? Your answer, yes, they did. That happened during the Pol Pot era. Question, did they go house to house to collect the data? Answer, yes, they did. Question, did you tell them that your husband was Vietnamese? Answer, yes. Madam Civil Party, having heard that and those responses that you gave to the DC CAM organization, does that refresh your memory that Khmer Rouge officials were collecting statistics and that you were asked whether your husband was Vietnamese?
Answer, I was not aware of that issue. I cannot recall it. I have forgotten since that time until now.
Thank you. You mentioned earlier in relation to a question about when your husband was taken away, that you didn't remember the date. If I mentioned to you that the arrests might have happened in 1977, does that refresh your recollection regarding the date that your husband was taken away?
Mr. President,
President, please hold on, Madam Civil Party. Cooper, you have the floor now.
I object to this question, or at least the part where the prosecution is suggesting this year. I believe that the witness herself has testified that in her recollection it was in 1978. So I don't think it's a fair question.
Mr. President, just to respond quickly, I'm referring to a portion of one of her statements in which she says the arrest took place during the rainy season of 1977. And so I wanted to ask in an open fashion before seeing if I needed to use the statement. I'm happy to just go right to using the statement if counsel prefers.
President, usually open questions should be put first into elicit general responses. And later on, if you need to cross-check her testimony together with the previous ones, you can go to specific question and you can ask whether or not the civil party recalled the previous statement, and how can the civil party respond to the two statements. So this is the practice that we have used so far. So you can rephrase your question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Madam Civil Party, earlier you stated that you didn't remember, in relation to questioning, that you didn't remember when it was that your husband was taken away. I'd like to refer you to your victim information form, that's D22/212. The Khmer ERN is 004181154. English 004367995, and in there you state that it was during the 1977 rainy season that your husband was taken away. Does that refresh your recollection that it was during the 1977 rainy season that your husband was taken away?
Answer: I can recall it. It was during the time when I was harvesting rice. I did not arrive in time of his arrest. After my return at home, I was told that my husband had been already taken away. I did not personally witness the time that he was being taken away. President, actually the question is different. The question is about your recollection concerning the arrest of your husband, and the question is whether the arrest or the disappearance in 1977 or 78. You made two different statements, and there is a question for clarification concerning the militiaman who brought your husband away, and your husband has disappeared ever since. So when did that happen? That is the gist of the question. Answer: it was in 1977, and I do not recall the exact date and month of that year.
Thank you. You just stated right now, and you also stated earlier that you did not return to the village in time to see your husband being taken away. You stated that you learned some of the details of your husband being taken away from your mother, who was present. In your written record of interview, and that's at E3/7809, English ERN 002-825-63, Khmer 002-71368, and French 004 86103. You state, I saw my husband walking untied in front with the militiaman walking along behind. When they reached the intersection with the road going to Kam Che Mea, that militiaman put my husband in a horse cart. I don't know where they went. Close quote. Does that refresh your recollection that you observed your husband being taken away?
Answer: whether he was put on to a horse cart, I had no idea. As I said, I did not personally see the event myself, so I do not know whether he was put onto a horse cart. I did not dare to uh, seek further inquiry on the issue.
Did your mother or anyone else tell you whether any of the individuals who we described earlier, that is Hon or Seng or Chem, were present when your husband was taken away?
Answer: I did not learn the information from any other people but from my mother. My mother was at home at the time of the event. Upon my arrival at home, I was told by my mother that my husband had been taken away, and she also told me that she did not know where my husband would be sent to. After hearing the information, I left for the work field to continue my harvesting job.
Did your mother tell you whether any members of the Khmer Rouge militia were present when your husband was taken away?
Answer: there was only one militiaman, not many of them. One militiaman walked my husband away. That is the information I learned from my mother. And upon hearing this, I went back to work.
Did you ever ask any militiamen if they were actually also going to take away your daughter?
Answer: the children or the child was not taken away. Only the father was taken away. I did not seek more clarification on the issue after my husband had been taken away. As I said, I did not bother asking further questions.
I'd like to read you a quote from your written record of interview. This is at E3/7809, English ERN 002 82562, Khmer 002 713 67, and French 004 86103. And in that you state, I asked that militiaman, and he said that he was taking my husband to cut rattan vines. I asked if he was taking my child. The militiaman replied, if the mother is ethnic Khmer, they don't take the children. Close quote. Madam Civil Party, does that refresh your recollection that you once inquired as to whether the militiamen were going to take your child as well?
Answer. The child was not arrested since the child was the offspring of Cambodian mother. If the mother was ethnically Vietnamese, the child would be taken away as well. And although this was the case, I was trying to conceal the information about my child.
Why would the child be taken away as well if the mother was ethnically Vietnamese?
Answer. The Vietnamese would be taken away, all of them. And at the time, since my child belonged to a Cambodian mother, she was not taken away. President, Madam Civil Party, please listen carefully to the question. The question is about the case that if the child was born from a Vietnamese mother, then that child would be taken away. And why was that the case? Do you know about that? Answer. I do not know about such a case that the child would be taken away if she was born from the Vietnamese mother. I do not know about this issue.
When you were told that your husband had been taken away to cut Rumpiek vine or rattan vine, did you think that they were actually taking him to cut Rumpiek vine?
President, Madam Civil, please hold on. Copper, you have the floor now.
I object to this question. This is asking for speculation. As a matter of fact, she first testified that she hadn't actually seen herself the walking away, but she has no information, no sources of knowledge that would suggest that she would know anything that would happen afterwards. So asking her what she thinks is asking for speculation because of who she was.
Mr. President, if I may respond. First of all, I phrased the question in that she was told that her husband was taken away, so I'm not implying that she personally witnessed it. Second of all, I'm not asking her what she thought would happen to her husband. I'm asking her what she thought at that current time. Counsel or myself are free to further inquire as to why she had one thought or another, but I'm not asking her to speculate. I'm asking her for what her thoughts were at that particular time.
President, the objection put by the defense counsel for Mr. Nguyen Chie Cooper is overruled. The chamber needs to hear the response to the question put by the International Deputy Co-Prosecutor. Madam Civil Party, please respond to the question if you recall it. Civil Party, I cannot recall the question. I forget it, Mr. President. President, International Deputy Co-Prosecutor, please reformulate your question.
Madam Civil Party, when you were told that your husband had been taken away to cut Rumpiek vine, did you believe at the time that he was being taken away to cut Rumpiek vines?
Answer. I was told I was told that my husband was taken away and he was assigned to go and cut Rumpiek vine. And I was told also that my mother did not know when he would return home. That was the information that I learned at the time.
And did you believe that information, that he was being taken to cut Rumpiak vine?
Answer. It is my true statement. And I indeed learned that he was assigned to go and cut Rumpia vine. My mother did tell me that. And then he disappeared from that time onwards.
Madam Civil Party, I'd like to read you a quote from your written record of interview. This is E3/7809, English, ERN 002-82562, Khmer 002-71367, and French 004-86103. And you're asked the question, how did you seemingly know that they were taking your husband away to be killed? And why did you also ask about your child? And you answered, I knew because 4 to 5 days earlier, Nagang, Aunt Tech's husband, had also been called away to cut rattan vines, and he had disappeared. Later on, Talakni's wife and children, who also lived in this village, were arrested and taken away. Close quote. Madam Civil Party, does that refresh your recollection that at the time when you were told that your husband was being taken away to cut Rumpiak vine, you knew that he was taken away to be killed, being taken away to be killed?
Answer. I was told that he was assigned to go and cut Rumpia vine, and it was my conclusion and assumption that he would not return. After his assignment, he disappeared from that time onwards. It was the same as others.
Did you know of any offenses or mistakes that your husband might have committed that would account for his arrest?
Answer. I did not know at the time what kind of mistake and offenses he committed. He did not tell me. He did not had a discussion with me. I only learned that he was taken away. My husband did not discuss the issue with me before that.
Before or after your husband was arrested, did you ever hear any of the Khmer Rouge in your village refer to either your husband or other Vietnamese as an enemy or insult them?
President, Madam Civil Party, please hold on. You have the floor now, Cooper.
Thank you, Mr. President. I object to the word arrest. Originally, this civil party testified that she heard from her mother that her husband had been walked away. Later, it was suggested to her that it wasn't walked away but taken away. She picked up on that, but she never used, so I was fine with that, but she never used the word arrest. She doesn't know. The arrest, as we all know, is a legal term. Other legal terms I am not allowed to use, so arrest, technically speaking, is also a legal term. She didn't use that word, so I object to the word arrest in the question of the prosecution.
Mr. President, I'm happy to rephrase so that it satisfies counsel for the defense. Madam Civil Party, let me ask my question again. Before or after your husband was taken away, did you ever hear any of the leaders or any of the Khmer Rouge in your village refer to him or other Vietnamese as an enemy or insult them?
Answer: no, no discussion on the issue about the enemy. He was called away on that day, and I did not know whether they had a discussion prior to that incident. And he went away on that day.
I'd like to read you a quote from your civil party application. This is D22/212, Khmer ERN 004181154, English 004367995. There's no French, I don't believe. The quote is, this is what you stated: during the Khmer Rouge era and before my husband disappeared, the Khmer Rouge used derogatory and insulting words and were prejudiced against my husband, saying he was a Yuan enemy, close quote. Does that refresh your recollection that you heard Khmer Rouge using derogatory and insulting words towards your husband?
Answer: no, no derogatory and insulting words were used. Before me, no one used this kind of words. My colleagues together with me, did not use such derogatory or insulting words.
I'd like to move on to ask you about some of the other individuals who you discussed this morning, or the two other individuals of Vietnamese ethnicity in your village that were taken away. I'd first like to ask you about Mr. Ngang. Can you tell me, did you witness when Ngang was taken out of the village?
Answer: I did not see the incident myself. I heard that he was also taken away to cut a rumpet vine. I did not know when he was taken away exactly. Ngang was the one who had been arrested first, and he went away after that time, and he never returned.
And what about his wife? Was his wife of Vietnamese ethnicity or of Khmer ethnicity?
Answer: Khmer, pure Khmer. And as for the wife, she is now living in another location different from my village. During the time, she was living in the same village as me.
Was she taken away as well?
Answer: Ngang's wife was not taken away. She is living. As of now, I do not know her place of residence. She is living in a different location now.
Do you remember when Ngang was taken out of the village?
No, I cannot recall that. I did not know when it was taken away.
I'd now like to ask you a few questions about the other individual you mentioned this morning, and that's Lac Ni's wife. I believe you said this morning that you couldn't recall the name of his wife. If I say the name Sun San to you, does that refresh your recollection as to the name of his wife or not?
I do not know her name. I cannot recall it.
And did you witness when she was taken out of the village?
No, I did not witness that. And she was gone, but I did not know when. She was gone like the rest of the others.
How did you learn that she had been taken away if you did not witness it yourself?
She disappeared from that day. So she was taken away with her children, and only her husband remained.
My question referred to how did you learn that she had been taken away with her children? Were you told about it by someone?
I knew because she simply disappeared from the village. They were all taken away, and she was taken amongst those people. She was not spared.
Do you know why they took her children at the same time that they took her?
Because the children were taken away because the mother was ethnically Vietnamese. And they would not spare even a single child.
And have you seen Lac Ni's wife or any of her children since they were taken away?
They lived in Dam, although it was not close to where I lived. They lived next to the main road, while I lived a bit further behind where they lived. President, Madam Civil Party, please listen to the question carefully. The question is, when you heard that they were taken away, had you ever met her since the time that Lajini's wives and their children were taken away? And no, I haven't met them, nor did I see them. I never saw them since.
And is it correct? Were there any other than the three individuals who we have discussed, your husband, Ngang, and the wife of Lac Ni, were there any other persons of Vietnamese ethnicity in Po Chen Dam village during the period that the Khmer Rouge were there?
No, that was all. There were only these families, and there were no other Vietnamese. That's all I know.
Did you ever attend any meetings that were called by the Khmer Rouge?
Yes, I was called to attend meetings, but I cannot recall any details about those meetings. I forget them all.
I understand that it was a long time ago, but let me ask, do you recall whether any issues regarding people of Vietnamese ethnicity was discussed at any of these meetings?
No, they did not mention that.
I'd like to see if I can refresh your memory, and I'm referring to your statement that you gave to DC CAM. This is E3/7562, English ERN 011700704, and Khmer ERN 000341100. I don't believe that there is a French translation at present. And they are asking you some questions about meetings. The question is, did they try to create bad feelings against the Vietnamese families during meetings? Your answer, they did. They criticized us in many ways. Question, so did they talk about the Vietnamese during the meetings? Answer, yes, they did, whenever they organized a meeting. Close quote. Madam Civil Party, does that refresh your recollection that at least during some of these meetings, the issue of Vietnamese families was discussed?
They did mention that. During the meetings, they spoke about criticisms, but I cannot recall anything else.
Madam Civil Party, did you ever see any individuals who were Vietnamese who were not members of your village being taken away?
No, I did not know about that, nor did I hear anything in other villages besides mine.
Madam Civil Party, have you ever heard of a Wat near Pochendam village named Wat Chas or Wat Au Kandal?
What?
I have not heard about that pagoda in Pochendam village. I do not know in which village the pagoda is located.
I'm sorry if my question was confusing. It's my understanding that it was not located in Pochendam village. It was likely located near Kandal village. But in the general vicinity of your village, does the name Wat Chas or Wat O Kandal mean anything to you?
President, witness, please observe the microphone. Witness, civil party, yes. I know and I have seen that pagoda in Okandalcha. However, the pagoda has been rebuilt.
Do you know what that pagoda was used for during the period of the Khmer Rouge?
I do not know about that. I did not know for what purpose the pagoda was used for. I lived far from that pagoda, so I did not know about it.
Do you know a person named Tree who used to live in Pochendam village?
With which tree? That name does not sound familiar to me.
I'm going to try again because I'm informed my pronunciation was less than perfect. The person's name is Tri. Maybe you can you say it?
The name is Cree, Mr. President. If you I do not know, but if you refer to Cree, I have a cousin whose name is Cree, and I do not know any other Cree. But of course, I do know my cousin named Cree.
I'm not referring to your cousin Cree. I'll ask one more open question before using a document. This individual's name starts, as far as I can understand, is pronounced Tri, and this individual during the Khmer Rouge period owned a horse cart in Pochendam village. Does that refresh your recollection at all about who this person might be?
The person who owned a horse cart died a long time ago, and indeed, yes, his name was Cree. During the regime, he had a horse cart. And I think he died several years ago.
Do you recall if he ever used his horse cart in when individuals were taken away from Pochendam village?
No, I did not hear anything about that. I knew he had a horse cart, but I did not know whether he was tasked to transport people, because I was busy doing the work that I was assigned to me, so I did not know about his work.
Thank you, Madam Civil Party. Thank you, Mr. President. I don't have any further questions, but my national colleague does.
National Deputy Co-Prosecutor, good morning, Mr. President. Good morning, Mr. President, Your Honors, everyone in and around the courtroom, and good morning, Madam Civil Party. My name is Chong So-won. I'm a National Deputy Co-Prosecutor. I only have a few follow-up questions to put to you. Madam Civil Party, can you tell the chamber whether your husband spoke Khmer, and if so, did he speak clearly? Answer, no, he did not speak it clearly. It was difficult to understand him. Question, can you also tell the court when did your husband come to live with you in Pukendam village? Like in what year? Answer, I cannot recall that. It happened a long time ago. I forget the month or the year. As I said, it's been a long time ago. Question, did he come to live with you in your native village during the Khmer Rouge regime, or was it before that? And it was during the Khmer Rouge regime. Question, this morning you testified before the chamber that you lived with your husband during the Tribunal regime, and which means it was prior to the Khmer Rouge regime. Is that correct? And he came to live there before the Khmer Rouge regime. Question, so he came to live in the village. What was his interaction with the Khmer people living in the village? Did he go along well with the villagers? Answer, he did not have any conflict with anyone. We were all living together in harmony. He never did anything wrong to him, and nobody did anything bad to him either. Question, what about the other Vietnamese families living in your village prior to the arrival of the Khmer Rouge? Did they go along well with the Khmer villagers in the village? Answer, yes, they did, and nobody opposed them. We all lived happily together. And you just focus on your own way of living. Nobody did anything bad to anyone. Question, did you continue to live in your village during the Khmer Rouge regime, or were you evacuated elsewhere? Answer, I lived in my village since I was born, and I remained living in the area, in the village. It was the village of my parents, and it was my village. Question, after the fall of the Khmer Rouge regime in 1979, did any Vietnamese families return to settled in your village? Answer, no, I did not see any. There was none. Nobody came. All those who went away did not return. Question, you said those who went away disappeared during the Khmer Rouge regime, but my question to you is that after the fall of the Khmer Rouge regime, and I mean post 1979, have you ever seen any Vietnamese families return to live in your village? And what I mean is that, are there any Vietnamese living in your village? Answer, no, there is none. Since that time, none of them came to the village. Question. When my colleague asks you a question that your husband was taken away to a Katarumpet wines and you said yes, and just a while ago you testified that when they were tasked to go and Katarumpet wines, you thought that they would not return, including your husband. And my question to you is the following. What is the reason behind that thinking? Answer. If they were to go, then they would not return, and that's what was my feeling. And indeed, nobody ever returned. All of those who were sent there never returned. Question. Before the arrival of the Khmer Rouge regime, what was your husband doing for living? Answer. He carried cow dung, water buffalo dung to fertilize the rice fields. That's what he was tasked to do. Question. My question to you is what he did for living prior to the Khmer Rouge regime, prior to the arrival of the Khmer Rouge. And he was a petty merchant. He sold livestock, including chicken and ducks, and actually they came to buy the livestock from him at the house. And in the afternoon, he would go around in the village to buy ducks and chicken. Question. Did he ever tell you what he did for living while he was in Vietnam? And he never told me about that. Question. You just stated that before the arrival of the Khmer Rouge, he was a petty merchant selling livestock. And what about after the arrival of the Khmer Rouge? Did he hold any position? President and Civil Party, please hold on, and Council Corporate, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Not really an objection, but an observation. The witness, or the civil party rather, testified that in her memory, the Khmer Rouge, quote unquote, arrived in '77. So that is still her testimony. So I think maybe National Council should be a little more clear, because if she speaks, or if she speaks to her saying the arrival of the Khmer Rouge, she means 1977. So maybe it's better to use years rather than these words.
National Co-Prosecutor, for the proper record, I will ask for confirmation from the Civil Party. Madam Civil Party, in response to my colleague's question, You stated that your husband was taken away during the rainy season of 1977. Is that correct? Answer: yes, that is correct. And that is the truth. I do not lie. And that was when he was taken away. Question: how long or how many years did the Khmer Rouge enter your village before your husband was taken away? Answer: it was about a month after their arrival. My husband was taken away. Question: did you live in the same village as the Lachkri, your cousin, did? Answer: yes, we lived in the same village. Question: and during the Khmer Rouge regime, did you also live in the same village or were you moved elsewhere? Answer: I was not moved anywhere. I have been living in a village since my birth. It is my native village, and presently I'm still living there. Question: I know it happened several years ago. However, Large Cree, who is your cousin, came to testify before this chamber a few days ago that the Khmer Rouge entered your village or area in early 1971 or 72. However, you stated that the Khmer Rouge came in 1977. So please try to recall as to when the Khmer Rouge entered your area. Was it in 1970 or 72 as stated by Large Cree? Or was it in the year that you mentioned? Answer: I know that it was in 1977. That is when they entered my village. Question: before your husband was told to go and cater rumpet wines, were you called to attend any meeting? Or were you ever told by other villagers about the meeting that mentioned Vietnamese? And so even if we were to attend the meetings, we were not attending the meetings together. There were separate meetings where husbands would attend those meetings or where wives would attend those meetings. Question: my question to you is that during the entire Khmer Rouge regime, that you participated in meetings with the Khmer Rouge cadres, did they ever mention about the Vietnamese people living in the village? Answer: no, they did not speak about that. I never heard them mentioning about the Vietnamese. Thank you, Mr. President. I am done with this witness, and thank you, Madam Civil Party. President, thank you. It is now appropriate for our lunch break. We take a break now and resume at 1:30 to continue our proceedings this afternoon. Court officer, please assist the civil party at the waiting room reserved for witnesses and civil parties during the lunch break, and invite her as well as the TPL staff back into the courtroom at 1:30 this afternoon. security personnel instructed to take Kisampon to the waiting room downstairs and have him returned to attend the proceedings this afternoon before 1:30. The court is now in recess.